In the headlines, North Korea test fires 7 ground-to-air missiles into the EC a day before Seoul and Washington wrap up their joint Key Resolve annual war games. Korea's finance minister calls on corporate Korea to invest more and hire more to help revitalize the economy. The businesses raise concerns of their competitiveness. And the Korea-U.S. free trade agreement marks its 3rd-year anniversary this weekend. We give you an in-depth analysis on how this FTA has changed the landscape of bilateral trade. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News live from Seoul. I am Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the latest tit-for-tat between the two Koreas. South Korean officials say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un observed his military shoot several surface-to-air missiles into the EC on Thursday afternoon.
Seoul officials speculate that the firing was to protest against the ongoing annual military exercises between South Korea and the United States. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
North Korea fired 7 surface-to-air missiles into the EC on Thursday afternoon. Officials say the launch is likely to have been in protest against annual joint military exercises between South Korea and the U.S. military, and that they were fired from Seondeok, South Hamgyong province. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff made the announcement on Friday, saying the missiles were SA-5s, which have a range of up to 200 kilometers, the longest in the SA missile category. One official reportedly noted that the Joint Chiefs of Staff believes North Korean leader Kim Jong-un observed the launch. This is the first time the North has fired SA-5s. The launch came a day before South Korea and the U.S. wrapped up their Key Resolve drill, the first of 2 military exercises underway this month. The 2-week computerized command post exercise involves some 10,000 South Korean and 8,600 U.S. troops and aims to enhance interoperability in all aspects of the military between Seoul and Washington in case of war. Part 2, the Full Eagle field training exercise, will run through April 24th. The drill mobilizes 200,000 troops from Seoul and Washington who perform a variety of drills on land, in the air, and at sea. Pyongyang claims the drills are a rehearsal for a northward invasion, while South Korea and the U.S. maintain they are aimed at countering possible provocations from the north. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
South Korea has been asking North Korea to talk about the regime's unilateral decision to increase wages for workers at the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex, with Pyongyang saying the hike was legitimate. Some observers say this could lead to another shutdown at the factory zone. Connie Kim has more.
Tensions are brewing over the Kaesong Industrial Complex as South Korea's offered deadline for talks over North Korea's unilateral decision to raise workers' wages at the complex expires on Friday. Last month, North Korea decided to up its workers' minimum monthly wage by 5% to $74. To this announcement, South Korea remained firm, calling on the North to come forward for discussions over wages. Seoul also said that unless the two sides reach an agreement, it would penalize South Korean companies complying with the wage hike. South Korean operators at Kaesong have expressed concerns that a wage increase could affect their business. But a day before the deadline, Pyongyang said the wage hike is a legitimate and normal exercise of its legislative rights, adding that it has no intention of negotiating with Seoul over its decision. Some worry the tug-of-war could lead to a shutdown similar to what happened in 2013. But others say Pyongyang has too much to lose for another halt.
North Korea is trying to get the upper hand over Seoul in regards to decisions at the Kaesong complex. It may also be trying to earn more foreign currency by enforcing the wage hike.
Since opening in 2004, the Kaesong Industrial Complex has been a symbol of inter-Korean economic cooperation and a significant source of income for the North. Experts forecast inter-Korean talks over wages at Kaesong could start once the joint South Korea-U.S. military drills wrap up in April. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Russia is set to hold a ceremony in May commemorating the end of World War II, but more and more Western leaders are boycotting this event, citing Moscow's involvement in the current Ukraine crisis. Hwang Sang-hee has more.
British Prime Minister David Cameron has joined the growing list of Western leaders boycotting Russia's Victory Day parade in May. That's according to his official spokesperson on Thursday local time, citing concerns about Russian activities in Ukraine. For that same reason, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and U.S. President Barack Obama have also said they will stay away. That makes North Korean leader Kim Jong-un one of the most prominent confirmed guests so far. Russia, finding itself shunned by the West, has been cozying up to North Korea. They have designated 2015 as a year of friendship, promising deepened political, economic, and cultural cooperation. Some remain concerned about this blossoming relationship, but others say Moscow could play a bigger role in inter-Korean relations.
Russia is aiming to use its ties with North Korea to expand economic cooperation with South Korea. That means Russia could support North Korea at multilateral talks, but it could also become the middleman in sorting out the problems.
Experts say the growing military alliance between North Korea and Russia is alarming. The two isolated states recently announced plans to conduct a series of joint Army, Navy, and Air Force exercises this year. Some also point to the possibility of Russia arming the North Korean military with advanced weaponry as a means to keep Washington busy in the region. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Over in New York, participants in a UN forum are calling for stronger measures against those who are found guilty of sex crimes during wartime. Park Ji-won tells us how this impacts Korea's ongoing campaign to seek justice from Japan.
Held on the sidelines of the 59th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, the forum focused on the issue of how to eradicate wartime sex crimes. Participants urged the international community to swiftly and sternly respond to ensure those responsible are brought to justice. Those among taking part are Gay McDougall, former special UN rapporteur on the issue of systematic rape and sexual slavery practices in armed conflict. McDougall called on world leaders to show a determination to resolve the issue and suggested the UN offer diverse opportunities to active individuals and civic groups for the cause of women's rights.
There must be an end to impunity for these crimes, whether committed by government forces, non-state actors, or international peacekeeping forces.
Korea's Gender Equality Ministry sponsored the forum to raise awareness about Japan's wartime atrocities, including its sexual enslavement of tens of thousands of Asian women, mostly from Korea, China, and the Philippines. Meanwhile, senior officials from Korea and Japan will meet next Monday for more talks aimed at resolving the long-standing issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. It will be the 7th meeting of its kind, but the two sides have yet to make any substantial progress on the highly sensitive subject. Seoul has called on Tokyo to take sincere steps to compensate the Asian victims, but Japan keeps saying the matter was already settled through a bilateral treaty signed in 1965. The talks come just days ahead of the first trilateral foreign ministers meeting between Korea, China, and Japan in 3 years. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Turning to the economy, Korea's finance minister met with leading business groups this Friday and urged companies to raise salaries as a way to boost sagging domestic consumption.
But he did have to face some resistance coming from corporate Korea. Ji Myung-gil has more.
Finance Minister Choi Kyung-won has once again called for a wage hike in order to revitalize sagging domestic consumption, which is pulling down the nation's economic recovery momentum. Choi emphasized the need for smaller subcontractors to raise minimum wage and for large conglomerates to support these subcontractors in employee payment. The finance minister, who is also the deputy prime minister, asked the business community to increase youth employment and urged companies to participate in major investment projects, as the government is willing to support long-term risk. In response, business leaders told the minister that they understand the government's commitments to revitalize the economy, but cautioned that any move to hike wages could affect their international competitiveness and undermine exports. Park Yong-man, the head of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, said the minimum wage issue should be discussed in tandem with a long-term master plan, and that since Korea has a smaller domestic market than the U.S. and Japan, a hike in the minimum wage will hamper corporate competitiveness. As companies are the main source of investment and employment, the government has been pressing them to return more of their profits to workers and shareholders, with the hope it will give them extra money to spend. Stagnant wages, rising household debt, and the aging population has weighed on domestic consumption, and companies have become more reluctant to invest and give employees a wage hike. Minister Chery reaffirmed that there will be no corporate tax hikes, as such a move is expected to have negative effects on corporate investment and hurt Korea's global competitiveness. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Well, this Sunday marks the third anniversary of Korea's trade agreement with the United States.
And to tell us more about the economic impact of this agreement on the bilateral trade, our Shin Se-min joins us live right here in the studio. So, Se-min, give us a progress report.
Yes, Chery, it's not easy to give a simple grade on this because the trade pact has, pact has brought up the bilateral trade volume, and that the level of the volume on-year growth was the highest last year, coming in at over $150 billion last year, up more than 11%. Now, this is larger than the level of average growth we saw with other countries, which is in the 2% range. Now, let me bring this chart up here. As you can see that the Korean exports to the U.S. grew from $58 billion 3 years ago to over $70 billion last year. Now that's up 13% from the year before. So the free trade agreement effect is there, but we can't overlook the fact that the U.S. economic recovery also played a role boosting the U.S. consumption.
Sure. So the recovery in the U.S. played a role, but let's talk about the market share of Korean products in the U.S. market. I was surprised to find it at mere 3%. That doesn't seem like a lot, is it?
It may not seem like a lot, Chery, but the experts that I talked to say that it is a well-played game, especially after the competition with the cheap Japanese products. Now, they seem to focus on the fact that Korea has managed to increase its market share while dealing with the Japanese weaker yen.
Then why is it that we're not really feeling the impact or the benefits of this trade agreement? I mean, I rarely go grocery shopping, but you know very well that these products, the cherries, lemons, oranges coming from the United States, are not exactly cheaper because of the free trade agreement. Why is that?
You're right. It all simmers down to the distribution channel. Now, listen to this.
The distribution channel for agricultural goods is to blame for pricey U.S. produce. The distribution system for such produce is much weaker than that for industrial products. So unless cherries or lemons are things that every Korean consumes on a daily basis, the import volume won't go up and prices will likely remain the same.
Now, as she just said, Korean consumers aren't eating enough cherries or lemons or oranges. And if those agricultural goods have a much larger demand in Korea, it'll definitely force the importers to ship in larger amounts of products, thereby lowering the consumer price tax. But especially with agricultural products, it's a little difficult to bring them in large chunks as they'll go bad if time passes.
Well, just because there's not enough demand to meet a certain amount of supply doesn't necessarily always wash out. Sometimes when I've talked to analysts about this, they say it really does come down to the retailers, wholesalers, whether they choose to pass on the savings to the consumers, and that always doesn't happen, as I've seen in the store for $28 butter. But yeah, $28, I think.
Okay.
Well, I don't know where the trade deal is on that. Yeah. But what are some of the things that the Korean exporters are doing to help improve bilateral relations in the long run under this trade deal?
Now, ultimately, it all boils down to the quality. Now, not just because that we have the free trade agreement with the U.S., but in order to expand the market share of our products in their market, the quality has to entice customers there. But the U.S. market looks more promising, according to an analyst I spoke with today.
With the slowly growing global economy, demand isn't likely to stretch like it has in the past. And the U.S. economy is slowly recovering, but it's picking up speed, and that's pretty much our only hope.
Now, he also added that Korean automobiles and parts, mobile communication devices like smartphones and even dietary supplements were welcomed in the markets in the U.S. Now, however, increased exports of those products aren't necessarily because of the free trade deal. It could just be the effects of economic recovery in the U.S. But all in all, bilateral trade will only grow further as autos and other products will also be added to the tariff-free list starting next year. And very soon we'll likely be able to see where the Korean automakers and other exporters will stand in their market. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for the update on that, and happy 3-year anniversary to the FTA.
Great. Thank you very much. And in other news, President Park Geun-hye gave praise to the broadcasting industry, saying it represented everything about our creative economy drive.
Speaking at a ceremony marking the 20th anniversary of the launch of cable television in Korea, the president said merging culture with world-class ICT will help the cable industry become Korea's next growth engine. And at an awards ceremony that followed, Arirang TV's own global project, Embracing the World, received a prize for visual graphics. The program follows overseas viewers who have embraced Korea's cultural assets such as K-pop, Taekwondo, and the Korean alphabet as a part of their lives.
A massive manhunt is underway for the gunman who shot 2 officers during a peaceful protest in the U.S. town of Ferguson.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, the suspect was said to have targeted these 2 men simply because they were in uniform. Do police have any other leads in this case?
Well, the lone gunman, who still remains at large, is believed to have fired at the officers from up to 100 meters away. Now, several people have been questioned, but no one has been arrested yet. Now, this comes as political leaders and civil rights activists are trying to ease tensions in Ferguson to prevent any further bloodshed. Our Son Jung-in has his story.
It was around midnight Wednesday local time when at least 3 gunshots broke out outside police headquarters in Ferguson as a group of demonstrators was beginning to disperse after a peaceful rally. The shootings left 2 police officers wounded, one in the face and the other in the shoulder. Both officers have been released after being treated at a local hospital and are expected to make a full recovery. U.S. President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder have both condemned the shooting, which Holder called an ambush, and have promised to hold the perpetrators accountable.
What happened last night was a pure ambush. This was not someone trying to bring healing to Ferguson. This was a damn punk, who was trying to sow discord in an area that is trying to get its act together.
A manhunt for those responsible is ongoing. Several people have already been brought in for questioning, but no suspects have been named and no arrests made. The incident took place as demonstrators gathered at Ferguson Police Headquarters to demand changes in law enforcement practices following a scathing report by the Justice Department that found widespread racial discrimination within the city's police force and court system. Ferguson has been at the center of racial tensions in America following the shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown triggered nationwide demonstrations last year. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
It's been nearly a month since 3 British schoolgirls fled to Syria to allegedly join the Islamic State group. Now, a high-ranking Turkish official is claiming that a foreign spy helped smuggle the trio into IS territory, with media reports emerging that the suspect may have been working for Canada. In an interview on television on Thursday, Ankara's foreign minister said authorities had recently detained a foreign intelligence operative. He did not reveal any specifics, but noted that he or she was not from the United States nor a member of the European Union.
We are talking about a terrorist organization that controls a part of the area on the other side of our border. We have so far thwarted many people with efficient work in our fight. We extradited 1,154, and half of these foreign fighters were caught and extradited without any information provided from their home country.
The Canadian government has dismissed the reports denying any involvement. The case has also highlighted the controversial issue that thousands of foreigners from scores of countries, including Britain, China, and the U.S., are known to have joined the ranks of Islamic State and other radical groups. And shifting to Russia, the country's central bank has slashed its benchmark interest rate by a percentage point to 14%. In a statement released Friday, the bank said the decision to reduce the annual base rate from 15% reflected what it called a significant cooling of the economy. It also defended that the widely expected move would not pose an additional threat of raising inflationary pressure. Russia has been steadily rolling back its key rate as the ruble is stabilizing after losing nearly half of its value last year. And turning to latest from NASA, the U.S. Space Agency has confirmed the presence of a vast underground ocean on one of Jupiter's moons, raising prospects of life beyond Earth. The moon, called Ganymede, shares some traits with Earth, like a liquid core which generates a magnetic field. Using data from the Hubble telescope, scientists were able to confirm the existence of the huge body of water. It's estimated to be 10 times deeper than any of Earth's oceans and hold more water than our entire planet. The discovery comes just a day after researchers reported that one of Saturn's moons contained hot springs beneath its icy surface. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here next week.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. Will the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games be ready on time? With concerns over its preparation growing, South Korean Prime Minister Lee Won-gu called on organizers to focus on the task at hand. In a meeting with the Games organizers, Lee said that while that meant settling contentious issues and progressing forward. On Thursday night, he ordered organizers and the Pogwang Snow Park operators to come to an overnight compromise over hosting fees for the snowboard and freestyle skiing events. The government will continue to oversee preparations and take the necessary steps to ensure a successful Winter Olympics. Over to the KBL playoffs for Game 3 between the ET Land Elephants and the SK Knights. ET Land were looking to sweep while SK tried to stay afloat without Aaron Haynes. And the Knights held on, forcing overtime, but Powell and the Elephants stomped through OT to take the game as well as the series. They'll face the Tongbu Promi in the semis. Moving on, world number 2 Park In-bi took the lead at Mission Hills in China, setting the course for a title defense and also a second straight victory. Making a stop on the ladies' European tour, Park pulled away for a sole position of first after posting another 4 under 69 to take her 2-round total to 8 under par. But with Holly Clyburn and Lin Ji-yu trailing at second place by a single shot, Park needs to stay aggressive en route to the championship round on Sunday. And finally, FIFA Vice President Jeffrey Webb has warned Russia that with its current level of racism, the World Cup cannot be held there. Webb, who also chairs FIFA's anti-racism task force, said that Russia poses a, quote, huge challenge from a racism standpoint. His concerns stem from a string of racist incidents in Russia, which include players of color being called apes or monkeys and bananas being thrown by fans. He added that FIFA's working with Russia to strike down the problem. And that wraps it up for sports this week. Your weather's up next. Good night.
Hello. Hello and happy Friday. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather outlook. We got to enjoy comfortable weather conditions, nice for outdoor activities, but drizzles are falling down south, including Busan. And over the weekend, tomorrow is shaping up to be a moderate winter day, but morning lows should dip a couple of degrees lower compared to today. And on Sunday, warm air is set to move in, pushing up temperatures above seasonal averages. Dry weather advisories continue for most regions, and it looks like conditions will remain this way for a while. Looking ahead, spring showers are set to fall nationwide by next Wednesday. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul reaches a high of 10, Daegu and Gwangju 14, Busan 13. Meanwhile, Jeju peaks at 12, Dokdo 7, Mount Kumgang 0. Hope you have a wonderful Friday evening. I'll see you soon.
And that's the primetime news for this Friday. Thanks for watching. I'm Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.